Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at setting up our charge cooling gains in our Motec M1 programming. This is something we definitely don't want to skip over. This is going to represent the cooling effect that the fuel that we're spraying into our engine is going to have. Now, we have to make sure that the charge cooling is expressed correctly. If we're dealing with petrol fuel, ethanol, methanol, whatever your fuel type is going to be, we need to make sure this is correct because it will throw things off within our modeling. It's very easy to actually determine the cooling gain, and we can do it at idle conditions. I'll be showing you how to do that here in the training module, but there are a few things we need to keep in mind and set up before we adjust our cooling gain. Now, one thing I want to go point out here within our fuel tuning window, if we go over here into our channels, we're going to find that we have our charge temperature. We can see engine charge temperature. It's expressed here as 4.7 degrees Celsius. We also notice that our inlet air temperature is 22.3, our coolant temperature is 57.3, and we have a charge cooling here of 17.6. Knowing our coolant temperature, knowing our inlet air temperature, also knowing our charge cooling, we end up with our engine charge temperature. There is an equation and calculation that goes on. We'll be exposing this and talking about this a little bit more in depth in the next training module because we have to factor in a couple things in order to actually dial the charge cooling in if we want to go in and have a more of an advanced modeling, so to speak, and have an actual correction factor that's going to be applied on top of our inlet air temperature value. Again, this is a little bit more complex than we need to have for this training module, so we're going to dumb things down here, and we're just going to deal with setting up and tuning our charge cooling and look at the effect it's going to have. It's very easy to set up. So we're going to move from our fuel tuning page, and we're going to jump over here into setup, and then go from basic setup all the way over here to charge cooling. Now here is where we can access everything we need in order for programming and setting up our charge cooling gain tables right here. So we have both a primary and a secondary. So based on the injectors, primary, secondary. If you have a single set of injectors, you'll only be dealing with the primary values. If you have two sets of injectors, a stage injection, you'll be dealing with both primary and secondary, and the values have to be independently calibrated. So meaning you have to turn on your primary set of injectors at idle, and then turn those off, figure out the values, turn those off, turn on your secondary set of injectors, dial your cooling gain in, and then turn it back into the normal primary gain. That's what you typically operate in idle at when you're talking about your injectors. So that's getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just talk about, and keeping this simple, just our primaries. I have a single set of injectors right now. All I need to do is deal with the values in my table. Now, I want to go and talk about a few things here within our calibrate window. We want to make sure we're putting our engine port temperature, or the charge temperature, I should say, in its most simplistic calculation, and that's going to require stripping away any of the correction factors that can be applied here in the background. So we want to make sure that we have our time constant under engine charge temperature time constant set at 0, our correction factor table set at 0. So if you have a 2 or 3 dimensional table, populate it, set all the values to 0. Then we also want to make sure our port temperature time constant is also set to 0. So we want to 0 all these out. Now what this is going to do is just purely take a look at our port temperature estimate, our inlet air temperature value, and our charge cooling gain. And that's going to be where we end up calculating our engine charge temperature. Now again, the engine charge temperature is the actual charge temperature that's going to be coming from our airflow stream, or air mass stream, coming into our engine, into the actual combustion chamber. So we want to have this value as accurate as possible because it is going to be part of our engine load or air mass calculation. So we know that we have our VE values that we use for calculation. That's percentage of cylinder filling. We express number of cylinders, engine displacement, and then we also have our charge temperature, and that is where it comes from in that equation we've already discussed in previous training modules. So it's important that we have this accurate. We want to have our air density representation being accurately tracked. So how do we deal with this? What do we actually do here? So we've gone back into, let's go to our charge cooling. We've went in here and simplified our model. So now what we need to do is just deal with our primary gain table here. Again, if you have secondary injectors, that'll be a separate process. You have to turn the secondary set on, turn the primary set off, vice versa, but we're dealing with a single set, so we're just dealing with this primary gain table.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.